Admiral Kwon Do-hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship watching Earth burn below. Smoke clouds covered half the planet. Cities that once held millions now lay in ruins. The human military bases were nothing but craters. Their space fleets floated as broken metal in the void. This was how the Velkan Empire always won. Find the warriors, kill them all, watch the rest surrender. Admiral, his aide reported, the last human military stronghold has fallen. Their resistance is broken. Kwon nodded. 300 years of conquest had taught the Velkans this simple truth. Every species had fighters and civilians. Remove the fighters, and the civilians would give up. It worked on the crystal beings of Andromeda. It worked on the tentacled swimmers of the water worlds. It would work on humans too. Dr. Park Min-soo walked onto the bridge carrying his datapad. He was the Empire's best expert on alien warfare. The patterns match perfectly, he said. We identified their warrior class correctly. Military personnel, police forces, veteran soldiers, all eliminated. The doctor showed his screens to the Admiral. Human warriors made up only 2% of their population. Standard ratio for most species. With them gone, surrender should come within 48 hours. Kwon smiled. Humans had put up a good fight. Better than most. Their weapons were clever. Their tactics were interesting. But in the end, they were just another species that would bow before Velkan might. On the planet below, Captain Lee Yun-ho crawled through the rubble of Seoul. His uniform was torn and bloody. His squad was dead. The human military was finished. But something burned in his chest that had nothing to do with his wounds. He activated his emergency communicator. This is Captain Lee to any surviving units. The military is broken, but the mission continues. Protect the civilians. Fight on, Static answered him. He was probably the last soldier alive on Earth. Dr. Park's data showed the truth. Human population 8 billion before the war. Human military casualties 160 million. Civilian casualties 500 million. Remaining population 7,340 million. They should surrender now, Park told the Admiral. Every model says so. Remove the fighters and peaceful populations always give up. It has worked for 3 centuries. Kwon activated the planet-wide communication system. Humans of Earth, your military is destroyed. Your weapons are broken. Your soldiers are dead. Surrender now and we will rule you with fairness. Fight us and we will finish what we started. He waited for the white flags. He waited for the surrender broadcasts. He waited for the crying leaders to beg for mercy. Instead, his communication officer looked confused. Sir, we're receiving a transmission. There's surrender. No, sir, something else, the main screen flickered. An old man appeared. He wore simple farmer clothes. His hands were dirty from soil. His face was wrinkled, but his eyes were hard as steel. I am Shin Tae-min, the man said in a calm voice. I speak for Earth, Kwon leaned forward. This was not what he expected. Where were the political leaders? Where were the generals crying for peace? You came to our world thinking you understood us, Shin continued. You killed our soldiers and waited for us to quit. You think warfare belongs to warriors. You think only trained fighters can fight. The old farmer looked directly into the camera. You wanted to see what happens when you threaten our children. Now you will learn what humans really are. The transmission ended. Dr. Park frowned at his datapad. This is unusual. Civilian populations don't make war declarations. They lack the training. They lack the weapons. They lack the organization. Maybe it's just an angry old man, Kwon said. Monitor the planet. They'll surrender soon. But strange reports started coming in within hours. Velkan patrol ships found destroyed supply convoys. Someone had used mining explosives to collapse mountain roads. Someone had poisoned water supplies at Velkan forward bases. Civilian resistance, the tactical officer reported. Small scale. Random attacks, Kwon wasn't worried. Civilian resistance was normal. It would fade when they realized how hopeless it was. The reports kept coming. A retired teacher named Bae Sun-hee had organized her neighborhood into a fighting unit. A former accountant called Ko Jae-sung was building bombs from household chemicals. A teenager named Yoo Mi-young was running messages between resistance groups. This is still within normal parameters, Dr. Park assured the Admiral. Civilian resistance happens, but without training and heavy weapons, it always fails. Day 3 brought worse news. A Velkan garrison had been overrun, not by hidden soldiers but by factory workers using industrial tools as weapons. The defenders sent a final message. They fight like soldiers, but they're all civilians. Day 5. 2 more bases destroyed. The attackers melted away into the civilian population like ghosts. Day 7. Vulcan casualties reached 5,000. The humans had lost many more, but they kept coming. Dr. Park studied his reports with growing confusion. This doesn't match any previous conquest. Civilian populations aren't supposed to fight this hard. They're supposed to surrender when they see resistance is hopeless. Maybe their warrior class was larger than we thought, Quan suggested. No, sir. Our intelligence was perfect. We eliminated every trained soldier, every police officer, every military specialist. These are truly civilians. Farmers, teachers, shop owners, students. The Admiral stared at the planet below. Smoke still rose from the cities, but now some of it came from burning Vulcan equipment. On Earth, Shin Tai-min met with other civilian leaders in a hidden basement. The old farmer had become something he never expected, a war leader. The soldiers taught us well before they died, said Bei Sun-hee. She'd been a schoolteacher for 30 years. Now she carried a weapon made from farm tools. They showed us how to fight, but more important, they showed us why to fight. Ko Jae-sung spread out hand-drawn maps. The accountant had learned to read military positions faster than tax forms. The aliens expect us to break. They don't understand that breaking was never an option. Young Yumi Young looked up from her communication equipment. She had built it from parts salvaged from destroyed phones and radios. Every human knows the stories. Every human learned the history. We've been fighting for survival for thousands of years. Not just our soldiers, all of us, Shin nodded. They killed our military and thought they killed our ability to fight. They don't understand that every human farmer has ancestors who fought wolves to protect their crops. Every human teacher has ancestors who fought to protect their students. Every human child has ancestors who fought to protect their families. Dr. Park presented his daily report to Admiral Quan with shaking hands. Sir, the resistance is growing stronger, not weaker. They're using tactics we've never seen. They retreat when we advance. They appear where we don't expect them. They fight like they were born for this. How many casualties? Quan asked. Ours or theirs? Both. We've lost 12,000 troops. They've lost maybe 50,000 civilians. But Sir, Park paused. For every human we kill, 2 more join the resistance. Quan felt something he had never experienced in 300 years of conquest. Doubt. The communication system activated again. Shin Tai-min appeared on screen once more. The farmer looked tired, but his voice was still steady. You're learning something new, he said. You came here thinking you could cut off our head and watch our body die. But you don't understand humans. We don't have a head to cut off. We are all head. We are all heart. We are all hands that can hold weapons. The old man smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. You killed our soldiers because you thought they were our warriors. But our soldiers weren't our warriors. They were our teachers. They taught every human child how to fight. They taught every human adult why to fight. They taught every human elder when to fight. The screen flickered with images of the resistance. Grandmothers teaching children to make explosives. Doctors turning medical supplies into weapons. Artists creating propaganda that made Vulcan soldiers afraid to leave their bases. You wanted to end our war by removing our warriors, Shin said. Now you'll learn the truth. Humans don't end wars. We fight them. And we've been fighting them for so long that we forgot how to stop. The transmission ended again. Admiral Quan stared at the planet below. For the first time in his long career, he wondered if the Vulcan Empire had made a terrible mistake. Dr. Park Min-soo had spent weeks studying human behavior, and nothing made sense anymore. His office on the Vulcan flagship was covered with reports, charts, and recordings. Every piece of data told him the same impossible story. Admiral, he said into his communicator, I need to brief you immediately. What we're seeing on Earth, it's not normal. Admiral Kwon Do-hyun arrived within minutes. The conquest of Earth was supposed to be finished by now. Instead, it was becoming the longest campaign in Vulcan history. Show me, Kwon demanded. Park activated his wall screen. Video feeds from across Earth appeared. Look at this footage from New York. That woman there, Bei Sun-hee. She was a teacher for 30 years. Never touched a weapon. Now she's leading a unit of 40 civilians who destroyed 3 of our armored vehicles. The screen switched to another feed. This man, Ko Jae-sung, he was an accountant. He spent his life working with numbers. Now he's building explosives that our engineers can't defuse. More footage appeared. This teenager, Yumi Young, she should be in school. Instead, she's coordinating communication networks across 6 continents. Our intelligence officers can't break her codes. Quan studied the images. They're just civilians who got lucky. No, sir. Park pulled up more data. These aren't random successes. They're learning. They're adapting. They're teaching each other. Every day they get better at fighting us. The doctor showed charts and graphs. In every previous conquest, civilian resistance followed a pattern. It started strong, then weakened as they realized the hopelessness. Humans are doing the opposite. They started weak, but they're getting stronger. Park switched to casualty reports. Week 1, we lost 500 troops, they lost 10,000 civilians. Week 2, we lost 800 troops, they lost 8,000 civilians. Week 3, we lost 1,200 troops, they lost 6,000 civilians. What does that mean? Quan asked, though he was starting to understand. It means they're learning to fight us better than we're learning to fight them. At this rate, in 6 months, we'll be losing more troops than they lose civilians. The admiral stared at the numbers. In 300 years of conquest, this had never happened. On Earth, Bei Sun He crawled through the ruins of what used to be a shopping center. Her unit moved behind her like shadows. They had learned to move quietly, to hide well, to strike fast. 6 months ago, she had been teaching children how to read. Now she was teaching adults how to kill. The transition felt surprisingly natural. There, she whispered, pointing to a Velkin patrol. 4 soldiers. Standard formation. Same pattern they always use. Her team spread out. They had practiced this 100 times. A factory worker named Kim moved left. A nurse named Lee moved right. A retired mechanic named Choi stayed with Bei. They attacked in perfect coordination. The Velkins never saw them coming. Afterward, they gathered the alien weapons and equipment. Everything would be shared with other resistance cells. Everything would be studied and improved. How did you know they would walk into our trap? Kim asked. Bei smiled. I was a teacher for 30 years. I learned how to predict behavior. Students, parents, administrators. Everyone has patterns. These aliens are no different. Ko Jae-sung worked in a hidden laboratory built in an old subway tunnel. He had discovered that human creativity was humanity's greatest weapon. Where Velkin technology was advanced but predictable, human innovation was chaotic and surprising. The aliens designed their armor to stop their own weapons, he explained to his assistants. But we don't use their weapons. We make our own. He showed them his latest creation. It looked like a simple metal tube. But Ko had filled it with a mixture of chemicals that would burn through Velkin armor like paper. The secret is not to fight them the way they expect, he said. They prepare for military tactics. We use civilian solutions. His assistant, a former librarian named Song, held up another device. What about this one? Ko grinned. That's my favorite. It looks like a calculator, but it sends a signal that crashes their communication systems. They'll never suspect a math tool could be a weapon. Young Yu Mi-young sat in her hidden communication center, coordinating resistance activities across the globe. Her equipment was built from parts taken from destroyed phones, computers, and radios. It should not have worked, but human determination made it function anyway. New York team, do you copy? She said into her microphone. We copy, Seoul base. Bei's unit hit their target. No casualties on our side. Excellent. London team, what's your status? Supply raid successful. We captured enough medical supplies to treat wounded for 2 weeks. Yu Mi-young updated her charts. The resistance was growing every day. New cells formed faster than the Velkins could destroy them. More important, the cells were learning to work together. Her greatest discovery was that humans had an amazing ability to share knowledge. A farming technique that worked in Korea could be adapted for weapons in Brazil. A hiding method that worked in America could be modified for Europe. Dr. Park studied intercepted human communications with growing alarm. The resistance wasn't just fighting harder. It was fighting smarter. Admiral, look at this, he said, showing Quan a decoded message. They're sharing tactics across continents. A successful attack in Africa gets reported to teams in Asia within hours. They're learning from each other's victories and defeats. Quan read the message. It was from Shin Tai-min, the old farmer who had become the voice of human resistance. To all cells, remember that we are not trying to win a war. We are trying to teach a lesson. Every day we survive is a day we prove that humans cannot be conquered. Every day we fight is a day we show the galaxy that freedom is possible. What does he mean? Quan asked. Park had been wondering the same thing. I think I think they're not fighting to defeat us. They're fighting to prove something. But what? The answer came 3 days later when monitoring stations across the galaxy detected something unprecedented. Other worlds, planets that had been conquered by the Velkans decades ago, were sending messages to Earth. This is impossible, Park said, staring at the communication logs. The Thylorians haven't spoken since we conquered them 40 years ago. The Centaurians accepted our rule completely. Why are they trying to contact Earth? Admiral Kwan felt a cold fear growing in his chest. What are they saying? Park played the recordings. Alien voices speaking in their own languages, but the translation was clear. Humans of Earth, we hear your fight. We remember what it means to resist. Brave humans, you show us what we forgot. Some things are worth fighting for. People of Earth, your struggle gives us hope. We thought resistance was impossible. You prove us wrong. Oh no, Kwan whispered. They're inspiring the conquered worlds. Dr. Park nodded grimly. It's worse than that, sir. Our reports show that several former slave worlds are starting to have incidents, missing supply shipments, equipment failures, minor sabotage. Are you saying the humans are causing rebellion across our empire? Not directly, sir. But their example is spreading. For 300 years, every species has believed that fighting the Velkan Empire was hopeless. Humans are proving that belief wrong. On Earth, Shin Taiman received the alien messages with satisfaction. He sat in his hidden command center, reading translation after translation of hope from across the galaxy. This is why we fight, he told his gathered leaders. Not just for Earth, for everyone. Bei Sun-hee looked up from cleaning her weapon. Do you think we can actually win? The old farmer smiled. Win? We've already won. Every day we survive, we prove that the Velkans can be fought. Every day we resist, we show the galaxy that they are not invincible. Ko Jae-sung added, the question isn't whether we can win. The question is whether the galaxy can learn what we're teaching. Young Yumi Young activated her long-range communications. I'm picking up something new, she said. It's not just messages to us anymore. The alien worlds are talking to each other. She played the recording. Alien voices from distant worlds speaking in languages most humans had never heard. If humans can fight, maybe we can too. They have no special weapons, no special powers. They just refuse to quit. What makes them different from us? Maybe nothing. Maybe we just forgot how to fight. Dr. Park presented his final analysis to Admiral Kwan with shaking hands. Sir, I've identified the problem. We made a fundamental error in understanding human warfare. Explain. Every species we've conquered had a clear division between warriors and civilians. Humans don't. Every human is a potential warrior because their entire evolution was based on conflict, not just with external enemies, but with each other. Park showed genetic and historical data. They fought each other for resources, territory, ideas, religion. They fought nature for survival. They fought disease, hunger, cold, heat. Fighting isn't something they learned. It's something they are. Kwan stared at the data. Are you saying every human is born a soldier? Worse than that, sir. I'm saying every human is born a teacher of war. They don't just know how to fight. They know how to teach others to fight. And now they're teaching the entire galaxy. The Admiral looked at the tactical displays. Velkan casualties were climbing. Human resistance was spreading. Other worlds were beginning to stir. For the first time in his career, Admiral Kwan Do-hyun wondered if the Velkan Empire had awakened something it could not control. The first rebellion outside Earth began on Thylos Prime, a mineral-rich world the Velkans had conquered 40 years ago. The Thylorians were peaceful by nature, mining creatures who lived in underground cities. They had surrendered without a fight when the Velkan Empire arrived. But something had changed. Commander Vex Thulan, the Velkan governor of Thylos Prime, received the first reports with disbelief. Mining equipment stolen? What do they need mining equipment for? They surrender all their minerals to us anyway. His aide, a young officer named Cass, looked nervous. Sir, there's more. We found this message carved into the mine walls. The message was simple. Humans fight. We can learn, Vex frowned. What does that mean? Before Cass could answer, alarms began ringing throughout the Velkan command center. The main mining complex was under attack. On Earth, Choi Dong-wook had been a diplomat before the war. Now he had a different job, teaching aliens how to fight. He sat in a hidden bunker, speaking into a long-range communicator built from spare parts. Thylorian friends, he said in their translated language. Remember what I told you? Your mining drills can break through more than rock. Your transport vehicles can carry more than minerals. The reply came hours later, distorted by distance and improvised equipment. We understand, human teacher. We are learning, Choi smiled. The humans had discovered something important. They didn't need to defeat the Velkans alone. They just needed to teach others that defeat was not inevitable. Nam Hye-jin had been a nurse before the war. Now she ran medical operations for the resistance. But she had also taken on another role, coordinator for what humans called the spreading fire. How many worlds are asking for help? She asked her communication team. 17 confirmed, replied her assistant, a former engineer named Park. Maybe more. The signals are getting stronger. Nam looked at her charts. Each pin represented a world where humans had made contact with local resistance movements. Most were small, careful groups, but they were growing. The Velkans made a mistake, she said. They thought conquering was about fear. But fear only works if people believe they have no choice. We're showing them they do have a choice. On Centauri Beta, a water world inhabited by aquatic beings, something unprecedented was happening. The Centaurians had been model citizens of the Velkan Empire for 60 years. They provided food and minerals without complaint. They followed every law without question, until they received a message from a human named Lim Kyung-soo. Lim had been an engineer before the war. Now he floated in a small submarine in Earth's oceans, speaking to fish-like aliens on a distant world. Your fishing boats can be fighting boats, he told them. Your underwater cities can be hidden bases. The Velkans live in the air. Underwater, you have the advantage. The Centaurian leader, a creature named Splish Navigator of Deep Currents, replied through translation software. We do not know fighting. We are peaceful beings. So were we, Lim said. Peace doesn't mean helpless. It means you choose when to fight. Dr. Park Min-soo presented his daily report to Admiral Kwan with growing desperation. The situation was spiraling beyond anything in Velkan experience. Sir, we now have confirmed resistance movements on 23 worlds. These aren't random uprisings. They're coordinated. Kwan studied the galaxy map. Red markers showed every world where rebellion had been detected. How is this possible? These species accepted our rule for decades, some for over a century. The humans, sir. They're teaching them. Park showed intercepted communications. Human survivors have somehow reached 12 different worlds. Not as invaders, but as advisors. They're sharing tactical knowledge, weapons designs, and most dangerous of all, they're sharing hope. The Admiral looked at specific reports. On Vega Prime, former slaves were learning to turn industrial equipment into weapons. On New Kepler, peaceful farmers were discovering that crop fertilizer could make explosives. On Proxima Station, space dock workers were converting cargo ships into attack craft. How many humans are involved in this? Kwan asked. Best estimate? Maybe 10,000. Out of their surviving population of 7 billion. Kwan felt dizzy. 10,000 humans are destabilizing our entire empire. It's not the numbers, sir. It's what they represent. For 3 centuries, every conquered species believed resistance was impossible. Humans are proving that wrong. On Thylos Prime, the Thylorians had learned to fight with devastating effectiveness. Their mining equipment carved through Velkan armor like soft earth. Their knowledge of underground tunnels made them impossible to track. Bei Sun He had somehow made it to Thylos Prime, though the journey had taken months through hidden ships and secret routes. She sat in an underground cavern, teaching Thylorian leaders human tactics. The key is not to fight fair, she explained through a translator. Fair fighting is for sports. War is about winning. The Thylorian commander, a creature named Deep Digger who finds truth, listened carefully. Human teacher, the Stone Lords have weapons we do not possess. But you have advantages they don't understand. Bei replied. You know every tunnel on this world. You can appear anywhere, strike quickly, and disappear. They have to protect everything. You only have to attack somewhere. She showed them plans drawn on cave walls. This is how we fought on Earth. Hit their supplies, not their soldiers. Destroy their equipment, not their bases. Make them afraid to leave their ships. Deep Digger, who finds truth, understood. We make their strength become weakness? Exactly. Their strength is overwhelming force, but force is useless if they don't know where to use it. Ko Jae-sung had reached Centauri Beta in a modified submarine that should not have been able to travel between stars. Human innovation had made it possible anyway. He worked with Centaurian engineers in an underwater laboratory, teaching them to weaponize their technology. Your water processing plants can make acid, he explained. Your pressure suits can be modified for combat. Your communication systems can jam their sensors. The Centaurian chief engineer, swim fast through dark water, examined the plans Ko had drawn. These weapons, they use our own tools? The best weapons are the ones your enemy doesn't recognize as weapons, Ko said. They expect military equipment. They don't expect industrial equipment turned into military equipment. Swim fast through dark. Water clicked approval sounds. This is wisdom. We will learn. Young Yumi Young had become the coordinator of Galactic Resistance Communications. From her hidden base on Earth, she maintained contact with resistance movements across dozens of worlds. Status report from Thylos Prime, she said into her microphone array. Thylorian units have disabled 3 more Velkin mining operations. Confirmed, came the reply from across the galaxy. Velkin reinforcements are being requested. Status report from Centauri Beta. Centaurian submarines have sunk 2 Velkin transport ships. No casualties on our side, Yumi Young updated her charts. Each successful resistance operation inspired others. Each Velkin defeat proved that the Empire could be hurt. But the most important thing was the communication itself. For the first time in centuries, conquered worlds were talking to each other. They were sharing ideas, tactics, and hope. Admiral Quan called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. The conquest of Earth had become a galactic crisis. Status report, he demanded. His tactical officer began the grim list. Thylos Prime, 3 garrison bases overrun, mineral production down 60%. Centauri Beta, naval operations suspended due to submarine attacks. Vega Prime, industrial production halted by worker uprisings. The list continued. World after world was experiencing resistance movements. Some were small, but all were growing. How many troops do we need to suppress these rebellions? Quan asked. His logistics officer ran calculations. Conservative estimate, 2 million soldiers. Sir, we don't have 2 million soldiers to spare. Then what do you suggest? Dr. Park spoke up. We could negotiate with the humans. Offer them terms for surrender. Quan stared at him. Negotiate? With species we conquered? Sir, the alternative might be the collapse of our empire. Before Quan could respond, his communication officer interrupted. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. It's addressed to you personally. From whom? The human leader. Shin Tae-min. The main screen activated. The old farmer appeared, but he looked different now. Thinner, more weathered, but his eyes burned with something that made Quan uncomfortable. Admiral Quan Do-hyun, Shin said, somehow knowing exactly who he was addressing. I wanted to thank you. Thank me? Yes, you taught the galaxy something very important. You showed them that empires can be resisted, that conquerors can be fought, that freedom is possible. Shin smiled, and it was not a kind expression. 6 months ago, 47 worlds lived under your rule without question. Today, 23 of those worlds are learning to fight. Tomorrow, maybe it will be 47 worlds fighting. The old farmer leaned closer to the camera. You wanted to end our resistance by teaching us that fighting was hopeless. Instead, we're teaching the galaxy that surrender is a choice, not a requirement. The transmission ended. Quan stared at the blank screen. In 300 years of conquest, no one had ever thanked him for attacking them. Dr. Park spoke quietly. Sir, I think we need to consider the possibility that we've lost control of this situation. The Admiral nodded slowly. The Velkin Empire had always controlled the galaxy through fear and overwhelming force. But humans had introduced some. Admiral Quan Do-hyun faced a nightmare that no Velkin commander had ever experienced. His empire was fighting 43 separate wars on 43 different worlds, and they were losing all of them. How is this possible? He demanded at the daily briefing. We have superior technology. We have superior numbers. We have superior training. Dr. Park Min-soo looked exhausted. He had been studying human warfare for 8 months now, and each day brought worse news. Sir, the humans have taught their allies something we never understood. They don't fight to win quickly. They fight to keep fighting. The doctor showed tactical displays from across the galaxy. Look at Thylos Prime. We win every major battle. We destroy their large formations. We capture their equipment. But they don't surrender. They rebuild, regroup, and attack again. Quan studied the patterns. This is inefficient. They lose more troops than we do. That's exactly the point, sir. They don't care about efficiency. They care about persistence. They've taught every resistance movement the same lesson. Losing a battle is not the same as losing a war. On Earth, An Jung-ho had been a librarian before the war. Now he ran intelligence operations from a hidden base in the ruins of what used to be the National Library. Books lay scattered around his command center, but they were no longer about literature or history. They were about war. "Report from Vega Prime," he said into his communication array. "How are the ironworkers doing?" The reply came from across the galaxy. "Learning well, human teacher. We turned their mining equipment against them. Today we collapsed 3 of their supply tunnels." An smiled and made notes. The Vegans were natural miners, but they had never thought of using their skills for warfare. Humans had taught them that the same techniques for digging metal could be used to bury enemies. "Report from New Centauri," he continued. "Swimming forces have learned human submarine tactics. We strike and disappear into the deep waters. The Stone Lords cannot follow." Each report proved the same thing. Human methods of warfare were spreading faster than the Velkans could adapt. But it wasn't just tactics. It was philosophy. Song Hai-wan had been an artist before the war. Now she created something more powerful than paintings: propaganda. Her words and images spread across the galaxy through hidden communication networks. Her latest message played on resistance radios throughout Velkan space. They told you that you were weak. They told you that resistance was impossible. They told you that some beings were born to rule and others were born to serve. All lies. The message continued over images of successful resistance operations. Humans are not stronger than you. We are not smarter than you. We are not braver than you. We simply never believed the lies. Her propaganda had a devastating effect on Velkan morale. For the first time in their history, Velkan soldiers began to question their right to rule. Some even began to desert. Ryu Seung-min had been a young mechanic before the war. Now he developed weapons technology that baffled Velkan engineers. Working from a hidden workshop in Seoul's subway tunnels, he created devices that should not have worked but somehow did. "The secret," he explained to his team of engineers and inventors, "is not to build better weapons than them. It's to build different weapons than them." He showed his latest creation, a device that looked like a broken radio but could disable Velkan shields from a distance. They designed their defenses to stop their own weapons. They never considered defenses against weapons that work completely differently. His assistant, a former computer programmer named Kim, held up another invention. "What about this one?" Ryu grinned. "That's my favorite. It sends a signal that makes their translation software give wrong information. Imagine trying to coordinate an attack when your orders all mean something different than what you think they mean." These weapons spread to resistance movements across the galaxy. Not through military supply lines, but through civilian networks. A farmer on Thylus Prime would receive plans hidden in seed packets. A fisherman on Centauri Beta would find blueprints wrapped around his nets. Dr. Park presented his weekly analysis to Admiral Kwan with growing despair. "Sir, we're not fighting resistance movements anymore. We're fighting an entirely new form of warfare." "Explain." "Traditional warfare has rules. Armies fight armies. Soldiers fight soldiers. There are lines between combatants and civilians, between military targets and civilian targets." Park showed footage from dozens of worlds. Humans ignore all these rules. Everyone is a potential combatant. Everything is a potential weapon. Everywhere is a potential battlefield. The Admiral watched video of a grandmother on Vega Prime teaching children to build communication devices from scrap metal. "Are you saying they're using children as soldiers?" "No, sir, they're using children as everything. Messengers, engineers, intelligence gatherers, weapon builders. The children aren't fighting directly, but they're part of the war effort." More footage showed similar scenes across the galaxy. Retired people becoming strategists, artists becoming propagandists, teachers becoming trainers, farmers becoming suppliers. "It's as if their entire civilizations have become military organizations," Park continued. "But they still look like civilian populations. We can't tell who's a combatant and who isn't." Kwan felt a growing horror. "Are you saying we're fighting entire species?" "Yes, sir. That's exactly what I'm saying." On Thylos Prime, the resistance had evolved into something unprecedented. Bae-sun-hee worked with Thylorian leaders in underground command centers that stretched for miles beneath the planet's surface. Today's lesson is about turning advantages into disadvantages, she told the gathered alien commanders. The Velkans have orbital superiority. That seems like an advantage. She drew diagrams on a stone wall. But orbital superiority requires communication with ground forces. Communication requires predictable schedules and patterns. Patterns can be exploited. Deep digger who finds truth understood immediately. We attack when they expect routine communications? Better. We make them think their communications are working when they're not. We intercept their signals, change them slightly, and send them on. Their orbital ships get orders that are almost right but completely wrong. The Thylorian commander made clicking sounds of approval. This is wisdom. We turn their strength into confusion. Exactly. And that's the human way of war. We don't try to be stronger than our enemies. We try to make our enemies weaker than themselves. Ko Jae-sung had established a training center on Centauri Beta, hidden in an underwater cavern system. Aquatic beings from across the sector came to learn human methods of irregular warfare. Water is your greatest weapon, he told his students. Not because you can fight in it and they can't, but because they don't understand it. He demonstrated with a simple model. They think water is empty space that happens to be wet. You know, water has currents, temperatures, pressure layers, chemical variations. You can hide in water they think is transparent. Swim fast through dark. Water raised a fin. But human teacher, they have underwater sensors. Ko smiled. They have sensors designed to detect metal ships and energy weapons. What if your weapons aren't made of metal and don't use energy? He showed them designs for weapons made from modified sea creatures, explosives created from underwater plants, and communication systems that use natural water currents. This is the lesson, Ko continued. Don't fight the war they want to fight. Fight the war you can win. Young Yumi Young had become the coordinator of what humans called the Long War. From her command center hidden beneath the ruins of Seoul, she maintained contact with resistance movements on over 50 worlds. But her greatest achievement was not military coordination. It was something more fundamental. She had taught the galaxy to think like humans. Status. Report from the outer rim, she spoke into her communication array. The Jakari bird people have learned human patience. Tactics, came the reply. They attack, retreat, and wait. The Velkans think they've won, but the Jakari know they're just resting. Status report from the core worlds. The silicon-based Kristecs have adapted human improvisation methods. They grow weapons from minerals instead of building them from metal. Each report showed the same pattern. Alien species learning human approaches to warfare. Not human weapons or human tactics, but human philosophy. The philosophy was simple. Never give up, never surrender. Never accept defeat as permanent. Admiral Kwan received reports that chilled him to his core. Velkan casualties across the Empire had reached 500,000 troops. More important, Velkan morale was collapsing. Sir, his aide reported, we have 3 entire battalions requesting transfer away from resistance zones. Disciplinary problems are increasing. Some soldiers are questioning orders. Questioning orders? Kwan had never heard those words applied to Velkan troops. They're asking why we're fighting species that won't surrender. They're asking if conquest is worth endless war. Dr. Park added his analysis. Sir, humans have introduced something into our empire that we've never faced. Doubt. For 300 years, our soldiers believed conquest was natural and right. Now they're wondering if maybe it isn't. The doctor showed psychological profiles. Velkan military doctrine assumes quick victories against opponents who surrender when defeated. We're Nhingnu. The Velkan High Command made their final decision in a room that had overseen 3 centuries of conquest. Emperor Zenth Valdris himself attended the meeting, something that had not happened since the Empire's founding. The human infection must be stopped, he declared to his assembled admirals and generals. Every day they survive, more worlds rebel. Every day they fight, more species learn to resist. Admiral Kwan Do-hyun presented the military situation with growing desperation. Your Majesty, we now face active resistance on 68 worlds. Our casualty rates have reached critical levels. Some garrison commands are requesting evacuation. Evacuation? The Emperor's voice carried centuries of imperial pride. Velkans do not evacuate. Velkans conquer. Yes, Your Majesty. But the humans have changed the rules of warfare. They've taught the galaxy that defeat doesn't mean surrender. Emperor Valdris studied the galactic map. Red markers showed active rebellion. Yellow showed growing unrest. Only 12 worlds remained fully under Velkan control. Then we will teach the galaxy a different lesson, he said. We will show them what happens to species that resist the Empire. Order Operation Final Solution. The room fell silent. Operation Final Solution meant the complete extermination of the human species. Not conquest. Not subjugation. Total genocide. Your Majesty, Dr. Park Min-soo spoke carefully. The humans are spread across dozens of worlds now. Finding them all would require all available fleets, the Emperor finished. Yes, every ship. Every soldier. Every weapon. We will hunt down every human in the galaxy and destroy them. When they are gone, the other species will remember why resistance is futile. On Earth, Jiang Minwu had been a starship engineer before the war. Now he commanded the remnants of humanity's space fleet. 7 ships built from salvaged parts and powered by determination. All ships. This is Flagship Sol. He spoke into his communication system. Long-range sensors detect massive Velkan fleet movement. They're coming for us. The reply came from Captain Oh Soo-jin, commanding the improvised battleship Busan. How massive. Every ship they have. This isn't a conquest fleet. This is an extermination fleet. Jiang looked at his tactical display. 3,000 Velkan warships against 7 human ships. The mathematics were impossible, but humans had stopped believing in mathematics months ago. All ships. Execute Doctrine Final Teaching, he ordered. Doctrine Final. Teaching was humanity's last lesson. To the galaxy. How to die in a way that inspires others to. Liv Oh Soo-jin had been a resistance coordinator on Earth before taking command of the Busan. Now she prepared her ship for the last battle humanity would ever fight. Crew, this is your captain, she announced over the ship's communication system. Today we teach the galaxy the final lesson about humans. We don't fight to live. We fight so others can live free. Her crew was a mixture of professional soldiers, civilian volunteers, and alien beings who had learned human ways of thinking. They all understood what was coming. Captain, her weapons officer reported. We've received confirmation from all resistance worlds. They're ready. Oh smiled grimly. Operation Final Solution would indeed be final, but not in the way the Velkans expected. On Thylos Prime, Deep Digger who finds truth led his people in their final preparations. The Thylorians had learned human tactics well, but they had also learned human philosophy. Today the Stone Lords come to destroy the human teachers, he told his gathered warriors. They think that killing humans will end what humans have taught us. The underground chamber filled with clicking sounds of determination. They do not understand. Knowledge cannot be killed. Wisdom cannot be destroyed. Freedom cannot be murdered. Bae Sun-hee stood beside the Thylorian commander. She had returned to Earth, but holographic communication allowed her to speak to allies across the galaxy. Remember what we taught you, she said. Don't fight to win today's battle. Fight to make sure tomorrow's children know that resistance is possible. On Centauri Beta, Swim Fast Through Dark Water prepared his aquatic forces for their role in humanity's final lesson. The Centaurians had become masters of underwater warfare, but today they would do something different. Human teacher Ko has shown us the deep wisdom, he told his people. We do not fight to destroy our enemies. We fight to preserve what our enemies would destroy. Ko Jae-sung's image appeared in their underwater communication center. Today the Velkans will try to end human resistance by ending humans. Show them that resistance doesn't belong to any one species. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Species that had learned human methods prepared for the greatest test of their education. The Velkan extermination fleet arrived at Earth with overwhelming force. Emperor Valdris himself commanded from the flagship Eternal Dominion, determined to personally oversee the end of human resistance. Begin orbital bombardment, he ordered. Destroy every human settlement. Eliminate every human survivor. Leave nothing that could inspire future rebellion. The bombardment began with devastating effectiveness. Human cities already damaged by months of war were reduced to ash and rubble. Hidden bases were detected and destroyed. Resistance strongholds were obliterated, but the 7 human ships did not try to defend Earth. Instead, they flew directly toward the Velkan fleet in what appeared to be a suicide attack. Human vessels approaching, the tactical officer reported. Their weapons are charging. Destroy them, the Emperor commanded. The human ships opened fire, but not at the Velkan fleet. They fired at Earth itself. Jiang Minwu spoke into his communication system one final time. Galactic Resistance Network, this is humanity's final transmission. We did not come here to defeat the Velkan Empire. We came here to make sure the Velkan Empire defeats itself. The human weapons struck strategic points across Earth's surface. Mountains collapsed. Oceans boiled. The planet's core began to destabilize. Emperor Valdris watched in confusion. What are they doing? They're destroying their own world. Dr. Park understood first. Your Majesty, they're not destroying Earth, they're turning it into a symbol. The human ships were destroyed within minutes, but their final action had triggered something unprecedented. Earth's destruction sent a massive energy pulse across the galaxy, carrying one last human message to every world that could receive it. Sujin's voice echoed across space. People of the galaxy, this is how humans die. Not in surrender, not in defeat, but in defiance. We chose to destroy our own world rather than let our enemies have it. Learn from this. Some things are more important than survival. The signal reached Thylos Prime as Velkan forces landed to suppress the rebellion. But instead of surrender, the Thylorians did something that shocked their conquerors. They sang. Deep Digger who finds truth led his people in an ancient Thylorian death song. But the words were new. We are the children of humans who taught us freedom. We choose death before slavery. The Thylorian resistance fought with unprecedented fury. When their weapons were destroyed, they used mining equipment. When their equipment was destroyed, they used their claws. When they were overwhelmed, they collapsed tunnels on themselves and their enemies. The pattern repeated across the galaxy. On Centauri Beta, aquatic beings chose to fight to extinction rather than return to slavery. On Vega Prime, industrial workers destroyed their own facilities rather than let them be used by conquerors. Most shocking of all, some Velkan soldiers began to refuse orders. I will not participate in genocide, declared Commander Yex Thulin, the former governor of Thylos Prime. Humans have shown us something we forgot, that some orders should not be obeyed. Emperor Valdris faced something no Velkan ruler had ever experienced: mutiny within his own forces. Thousands of soldiers laid down their weapons rather than continue the extermination campaign. Dr. Park presented his final analysis to the Emperor with shaking hands. Your Majesty, Operation Final Solution has succeeded. The human species is extinct. Earth is destroyed. Every human in the galaxy is dead. Then why do I feel like we've lost? The Emperor asked. Because we have, Your Majesty. Humans didn't fight to survive. They fought to teach. And their final lesson is being learned across the galaxy. Reports flooded in from across the Empire. Resistance movements that should have collapsed after humanity's extinction were instead growing stronger. The sight of humans choosing death over surrender had inspired something the Velkans could not understand: the idea that some things were worth dying for. On dozens of worlds, species that had accepted Velkan rule for generations were remembering what freedom meant. They had watched humans sacrifice everything for the principle that resistance was possible, and they chose to honor that sacrifice. Kang Byung-ho had been a diplomat before the war. Now he was dead, killed in the final battle for Earth. But his final message had reached resistance leaders across the galaxy, and they acted on his instructions. The Galactic Liberation Council convened in secret, led by beings who had learned human methods of organization and resistance. They issued a simple declaration: the human species died to prove that freedom is possible. We choose to live to prove that freedom is permanent. The rebellion spread faster than the Velkans could suppress it. Without the human teachers, the alien species had become teachers themselves, sharing the lessons they had learned.